Hello everyone, my name is Tyler. I'm a designer here at Thunder, and this webinar is aimed to inspire new ways to use the Thunder editor. And so today we are going to show you how to recreate this ad using the Thunder editor. And there is also a hover effect that is triggered when you hover at any point in the stage. So we can hop over to the Thunder editor. To get us started, I've already uploaded all of our assets. In the Photos tab, we have our sky image, we have our window, and our passenger. In the Logos tab, we have our logo background and our plane. And these are split up so that we can create that hover effect. In our Text tab, we have our title and we have our call to action text. In our Shapes tab, we have our call to action background and a transparent hover, kind of like a target. So to get started, we can start dragging our assets to the stage. I'm going to enlarge this window so that it almost fills up the stage. And we want that to be perfectly centered, so I'm going to use my align tool right here. I'm going to do align center and align middle so that it will go perfectly in the center of this whole stage. Next we can bring down our sky image, and we want to enlarge this so that it is large enough to fill the entire window. And with this one we want to, I'm going to drag this layer down. We want to make sure that the image is lined up with the top of the window and the right side of the window. The sky image is lined up with the right side of the window, and this will be a little important later on. Next we're going to bring down our passenger, and we're also going to enlarge him. And we want to make him large enough so that his elbow is kind of lined up with the bottom left corner of this window, and his nose is lined up with close to the top of the window. And the positioning is important later on when we shrink them down. So first we're going to select this first keyframe of the sky, and using the keyboard I'm going to hold shift and hold the right arrow, which causes it to jump over 10 pixels at a time. We're just going to do this until it's all the way over to the daytime. And if I push my play button right here, you'll see that it slides all the way to the nighttime. And you'll see that it moves at kind of a constant speed, so we want that to look a little bit more natural. So if I right click on the animation and click set easing, I can add an ease out of quad. If I hover over that, you'll see that it gradually speeds up and then it gradually slows down. Next we don't want our passenger there to be there the whole entire time, so we're going to slide him over here, and we're going to take that final keyframe and slide it over to the 4-second mark. Next, if I select this layer and I hold command, I can select both of these layers and right click. I can then insert a keyframe onto both of those layers. And we want these all to shrink down over this 1 second period. So if I use the scale tool, I can set that to 0.5, and this little link makes sure that ensures that it keeps the same ratio. So if I do that to the rest of the layers, and if I grab my scrubber, you'll see that they all do shrink down. However, they have different anchor points, and this is why that positioning was important earlier. So if I select my final keyframe of the passenger image, I can readjust him so that his elbow kind of lines up with the bottom left side of that window, and his nose is lined up with the top of the window. Same with the sky image. If I adjust this so that the top of the sky image is lined up with the top of the window, and the right side of the sky image is lined up with the right side of the window. So now you'll see that they all shrink down in proportion to one another, but they do have different easing on, so we're just going to set the easing of ease in out quad to the other two layers that do not have it. Now you'll see that they all, wrong easing. Alright, now you'll see that they all shrink down in proportion to one another. Next we're going to go to the 4.5 second mark, and we're going to select all of our layers and right click and insert a keyframe. We're going to do that again at the 5-second mark, and we're going to select each one of these keyframes, hold our shift key, and click the left arrow 3 times, and that will cause it to jump over 30 pixels. And now we want our title and our logo and our CTA button to appear. So, but we don't want our images to disappear. So before we do that, we can select all the layers and add a keyframe to the this final frame flag marker. So now if we move our scrubber to the 5.25 second mark, we can start dragging down our other assets. I'm going to readjust these layers so that they are in the correct order. If I start adjusting the size and position of these, it's actually going to adjust these keyframes down here. So to be able to adjust the size and positioning, we can select this Edit All toggle, which will edit all keyframes involved rather than a single keyframe. So now that I have that Edit All toggle on, I can go ahead and readjust these so that they're in the correct position and correct size. And with our title, we can select this text layer and we can adjust our letter spacing to give it a more customized look, and our line height as well. So now we just need to add the animations to these, and since they all are very similar animations, we can just adjust one of the layers and then copy paste the animations to the others. So we want this animation to be a half a second long, and we're going to select this first keyframe. I'm going to hold the shift key and push the up arrow once so that it will jump up 10 pixels, and then I'm going to drag the opacity down to 0. And then if I right click on it and add ease out of quad, it will kind of gradually rest into place. Next I'm going to extend this keyframe all the way to the end so that it won't disappear, and we have that animation done. Next we want to apply that animation to all the rest of the layers above it. So if we click on this menu over here and click copy animation, and we can click on the menus of the others and just paste that animation. So now all of them have that same animation, but we want them to appear one at a time, so I'm just going to stagger them on the timeline itself. So if I just adjust these two right here and then adjust these two here, you'll see they all appear one at a time. So if I drag my scrubber to the beginning and push play, we actually don't want our passenger to appear just like that, so all we have to do is select this first keyframe and drag our opacity down to 0. And if we play again, so the last thing to do is add that hover effect. To do this, we just need to save down an animation. And one way that I like to do this is we can just hide this layer so that we don't have to affect these keyframes whatsoever, and we're just going to drag down another plane. Now we have this layer that we can create our animation, we can save the animation, and then just delete the layer. So at the 6 second mark, or 6.25 second mark, we're going to add a keyframe. If we have this keyframe selected, we can adjust the plane so that it's just off of the stage, and that will create a motion that it's flying off of the stage from its original location. Next we're going to add a keyframe right here, and we are going to set the opacity to 0, and then if we insert another keyframe and select this final keyframe and copy that keyframe, we can then paste that keyframe right here, and then we want to drag this opacity down to 0 again, and you'll see that it slides off, it will go back into place, and then it will slowly start fading back in. But we want it to fade in a little bit faster, so we're going to add one more keyframe right here. We're going to select this keyframe and drag it all the way down to 0, and that way it will fade in a bit quicker. We also want to right click in between these two keyframes and set the easing. We want to keep it on ease in, and we'll just add quad. And that way it will slowly speed up and then it will shoot off of the page very quickly by the end of that keyframe. So now that we have this animation all created, we can right click on it, we can click Save Animation, and we can name this hover effect. So now if we can just delete that layer and unhide the original plane layer, and that way it still has its same animation. If we close out the animation timeline and go to our second frame, we can go to our transparent hover layer right here. If we drag that to the stage, and then using our fill canvas tool, we can just make it snap to the exact size of the canvas. And we can add an action to this layer. We're going to do an add mouse enter. We can click play effect, add widget to animate. We want to find our plane layer, which is this one right here. You can see that it's selected on the stage. So we can select that. We want to click on this no animation and adjust or change it to our custom animation, the one that we saved down. And you'll see when I hover over that, it shows a little preview of what the animation is. And then we want to click save. So if we go up here and preview our ad, and we have the hover effect as well.